Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Chandelure. Now, Chandelure, man, those stats, they just make you feel all warm inside. And then Chandelure goes and rips that warmth out of you because it's a spooky ghost that wants to steal your soul with its fire. So, bit of a trade-off right there, but I think it's worth it to have 145 on that special attack. So this Pokemon's going to put out serious damage and then be fairly tanky as well. 60 on the hit points with 90s on the defenses means we start to just edge out. We barely get out of that range where we can get neutrally one-shot by powerful moves, but we're also really good with our typing as well, so it makes us difficult to hit with very powerful moves. And then we also have 80 on the speed. 80 on the speed is a really good tier if we're going to be just a bit bulky or if we're going to be running as a sweeper. Put into speed boosting, we can scarf into that. We also just outspeed a lot of other tanky Pokemon that a lot of Pokemon that we've reviewed are 70s and lower and even much lower. So we can just find natural outspeeds on those Pokemon, or we can just play it up and try to get some speed into it. Look at its typing, it's a Ghost Fire typing, and when I was talking about not having to worry about very powerful moves, being that Ghost type, we have the immunity to normal and fighting, so we aren't going to see that close combat. A neutral close combat is one of the more threatening things, and also we are Fire type, so we're going to resist or be immune to, depending if we're running Flash Fire or not, to like a Flare Blitz or something. So a lot of very high base power moves we are going to be pretty set up against, and then we do have to deal with quite a bit of weakness though. Ground, rock, ghost, water, and dark. So a lot of fire and ghost weaknesses just adding up together. We do get a nice amount of resistances: fairy, ice, grass, fire, steel, bug, and poison. So really it's either going to hit a super, be immune, or be resisted, and then there's only 4 neutral hits. Hopping into Pokemon Showdown, we are going to see how to use Chandelure, and like I said earlier, you just want Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf is going to be the way to go because we just get to hold on to a lot of our damage and then outspeed pretty much everything. But really it's going to be up to you if you want the Flash Fire or the Infiltrator. Flash Fire gives you a lot of really good switching options if you're running a Pokemon like Caesar, Ferrothorn, or any Steel-type Pokemon, or if your team just has a bit of an unusually high fire weakness, just bring in Chandelure, then it gets powered up. Choice Scarf in that Flash Fire is going to be crazy, and if we're running the Flash Fire looking for that, then that's when we can run the Timid Nature. Timid Nature is going to give us a really good amount of outspeeds, but if we're not going to be running the Flash Fire, then we're going to want the Modest Nature. A lot of it is preference. Like if you want to outspeed a certain speed tier, then you're probably going to want to like check into that. With the Modest Nature, you're going to be able to outspeed 125 base speed Pokemon or lower, and that's kind of it. So you'll be able to get Greninja if that's all you cared about, but if you want to outspeed 130 or 135 or even higher than that, then yeah, you might want to go with that Timid Nature, but you will sacrifice the damage, so less one-hit KOs overall, and that's just kind of what we're dealing with. With a Flash Fire, we can get away with that. However, if we're running the Infiltrator, that has its own set of benefits, because if the opponent's trying to set up some kind of substitute and go into some kind of like status protection or whatever kind of stall, you just bust through that and destroy them. And you're already going to have the Modest Nature, so it's just raw damage that's going to really make the opponent suffer, so that could be pretty good. If it's the odd case of like Light Screen or something, you can get damage into that, and that works out really nice. Also, Chandelure has an out. Trick. So Trick makes it to where you switch the held item, and that pretty much means that if you see a really heavy stall type Pokemon, you just give them the Choice Scarf, and if the situation reads on it, you take out one of your opponent's sweepers, they don't really have anything that threatens you directly, then you can just find those outspeeds against the tankier Pokemon with that 80 base speed. So that's where the 80 base speed comes into play twice. That we can use it to outspeed a lot of Pokemon, then Trick, and still outspeed a lot of Pokemon, or retaining damage and stuff. That's pretty much going to be the base usage of Chandelure. Just understand that it's going to be choiced of some kind, because it's going to just look for coming in, being fast, and doing tons of damage. Now you might also see the choice specs. Choice specs will pretty much be the same idea, just timid, not outspeeding as much, but it's going to be much more damage and much higher KOs. And then for the moveset, we have like Fire Blast, Shadow Ball, Energy Ball. So we have our coverage. Now Fire Blast is nice, because 85% accuracy on the 110 base power move, different than Blizzard, Hydro Pump, or Thunder. Hydro Pump is going to be the next best one, but that's only at the 80% accuracy, so Fire Blast is the best deal out of all of them. Shadow Ball, just high stab damage, and Energy Ball. You get Energy Ball. That's a bit messed up because Water-type Pokemon threaten you since you're Fire. And then you go and destroy them with the Energy Ball before they have a chance of doing anything to you. Chandelure's got it covered pretty well. Other than that, Chandelure's also amazing in double battles. Take out Fire Blast, put in Choice Scarf, and here's where you get into that Flash Fire Infiltrator again. You might see Pokemon like Heatran, Charizard Y, Pokemon using Heat Wave, potentially Eruption, but that's going to be really good for Flash Fire. However, Infiltrator, there's a lot of light screen set up. There's people trying to throw out the substitute. it's one of those give and takes again that, you know, maybe it plays around with your team some more. Like, do you really need the Flash Fire? You could also maybe set up a Tailwind with your other Pokemon so you can run choice specs, and then you get the damage anyway. So you get that extra damage, you can still run the Infiltrator, you gain a lot of speed from the Tailwind, a little bit more setup, but then that's just how you absolutely steamroll opponents. It is going to be a bit riskier because doubles, you need that protect outplay from time to time, but Chandelure kind of changes that by saying, well, I'm just going to explode you anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter. If we are going to be running that Tailwind setup, we can also invest more into the hit points, find a speed tier we like, maybe try to look for those other Scarf Pokemon we're trying to outspeed, and then we can invest hit points into it. Scarf Chomp, Landorus, those are going to be Pokemon that are pretty common, so let's go and say we have a Landorus Therian that wants to be scarfed in our face. So Jolly Nature, that's going to be 309, so then we need to also kick it down to level 50, because interestingly enough, a lot of the speed things change at level 50. A level 50 with lower speed boosting its speed is going to be better than a level 100 not boosting its speed against another Pokemon. So we'll find some really weird cases where the damage does change up a bit. So let's go and just put this down to level 50. And remember, we're not going to be Choice Scarf potentially on the set. We're just going to be looking for the Choice Specs. Now for Landorus, we will need to outspeed 236 speed, so that's going to be pretty simple to do. All we have to do is put this up to 119, and then the rest goes into hit points. So this is going to be more optimized for certain VGC Pokemon, a boosted Pokemon with +1 speed at a 101 speed. So you'll also outspeed Scarf Pokemon with 100 base speed, and then just have a lot of damage and a bit more bulk. So now you can survive that turn while setting up that Tailwind, and then just go for absolute shenanigans on that Heat Wave, and it's going to be good to go. You can also pretty much do the same things as earlier. You can run Trick, Energy Ball, Shadow Ball. If you have like another Pokemon, maybe Hex is an option. That if they're going to be throwing out status, that could be something for the later game. But this is going to be kind of playing around Chandelure with the rest of your team. Other than that, we can also run Trick Room Chandelure in doubles. That it has a lot of health bulk that we can play to that tankiness. So the idea is we go with that quiet nature, use that quiet nature, set up the Trick Room, and then we just now it's like the other way around. Instead of using that turn for Tailwind, we're using that turn for Trick Room, and then we get a ton of damage as well because we go Life Orb with a special attack boosting nature, and then we still have Heat Wave and Shadow Ball and Energy Ball, and that could be absolutely nasty to deal with. Infiltrator works on the set as well. You are taking that turn, that in that turn they could be setting up their light screen, their whatever, and then you just say, haha, no, and obliterate them. But that's where you also just have to take those risks, you know. If you see Chandelure doing an absurd amount of damage after you set up the light screen, then know it's safe to hit with a fire type attack if you must. Still going to resist it, but that means, you know, if there's a Heat Wave option available, you might be able to take that, or if it's the other way around, that if you throw out the light screen and then the damage seems oddly reduced, then know it has the Flash Fire ability. So that's. You can also run Will-O-Wisp on the Trick Room for the Chandelure. Now, if you don't want Chandelure to be the main damage threat and you really need a burn on your team, Chandelure can do that pretty well. Not going to be good on like the Scarf or Choice sets, but if you're doing towards playing more status, you know, we'll talk about Minimize in a bit, but it can also just kind of do Pain Split. Will-O-Wisp have a lot of natural damage with hit point special attack investment, and you can play into that just a little better, and if you don't have the status already on your team. But if you're running the Will-O-Wisp, Hex might be an option, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Small little things like that could really make or break Chandelure play. That's gonna be it when it comes to the standard Chandelure stuff, but let's get a little fun right now. Chandelure also has a really wide move pool of just hilarity that you get access to the Clear Smog. So if your opponent's trying to set up Swords Dance or Dragon Dance or anything like that, it's kind of bulky enough, and if you make that predictive play, you know, on a turn they're setting up, you just say, oh, by the way, I'm holding on to the Clear Smog, so if they get greedy, you know, they go for 2 turns of setup, you just take that away, and then you can set up for yourself. This also works really well against Calm Mind Pokemon, because you start setting up Calm Mind, they're going to bring in a Pokemon, start setting up Calm Mind, and then you like tap on their shoulder and go, hey buddy, yeah, no, and then boom, Clear Smog, boom, that's going to be pretty nice right there. And you have Pain Split. So Chandelure's main problem is going to be not the greatest amounts of sustain. However, we've seen with Rotom that you can actually stay on the field a pretty long time if you have the Pain Split and leftovers. And a lot of other Pokemon are good with this. So as long as you understand, I'm going to take hits now that are putting me in pretty much lethal damage on the next turn, that's when I Pain Split, that's when I get everything back, that's when I set up the one more Calm Mind, and then that's when I go for the Flamethrower Sweep. And that's going to... And that's pretty much how this works. The idea behind this one is you want to set up 2 Calm Minds, be really tanky defensively, get that special defense really high up there, and then every time you're about ready to get KO'd, you just pain split up, and then you resume your sweep with flamethrower, because you have a really high amount of damage. If you go +3 on the Calm Mind or +4, then the game is pretty much yours, and that's going to be excellent. Other than that, we also have Minimize on Chandelure. Now, Chandelure can run this set with Minimize in a way that it is going to be a bit tricky, because we do need that damage boosting, but we will have to take out the Clear Smog, so the opponent can set up against us as well. But just one of the things, you open up Chandelure, they're thinking damage, they might try to switch or go for something, and then you just say, hey, Minimize. Well, their game is about to get a lot less fun, and that should just translate into a win right there. Now, Leftovers Pain Split, still really good heal engine. I like the idea of a potential Bright Powder. Just makes it to where the accuracy goes down a bit more, so you can just add that on, you know, free minimizing that Bright Powder might buy you a turn for the Calm Mind. And then since you're not worrying about taking damage half the time once you have a Minimize or two, you don't really need to worry about Leftovers giving you those small little bits of health, because, okay, they miss, that's free Pain Split, and then you go into the Flamethrower. Only problem here is that you get one move slot syndrome, and that could be a bit of a problem. Other Flash Fire Pokemon that heavily resist fire might be able to stop you out a bit, so Dark Pulse could be an option instead of the Flamethrower, and then that's when we just have Minimize. But, you know, if you just play around it, you bring Water type Pokemon, you make sure their Flash Fire Pokemon goes away. There is a lot of Heatran, so the Dark Pulse does work in that situation. You set up a lot of Calm Mind, just 2-shot Heatran, instead of having to play around it for the water once you get set up and whatnot. This is better for leading if you're afraid of Flash Fire, but then at the same time, you just go Flamethrower. You can bring in other Pokemon that are just going like bulk stall out, you know, Chandelure. Bring in Pokemon like Slowbro, a Pokemon like Vaporeon. Vaporeon also gives you the Wish access as well, so you can maybe give some health back to another Pokemon. It's good for healing up and also stopping the main thing that stops your Chandelure. And that's going to be like setup heavy Chandelure, but you've seen the Xatu chilling over here on the side, and I just want to mention Simple Beam. Simple Beam in double battles does some really hilarious things. We've seen it used on Muck with very high success, and I've seen it used on Chandelure with very high success. The idea is Xatu outspeeds and then lands that Simple Beam onto Chandelure. By the time Chandelure gets to attack, its Minimize becomes a +4. I think that's going to be pretty much all that Chandelure needs. It goes to 43% chance that you're going to hit it with a 100% accurate move, and then you just kind of do whatever from here. Maybe set up a Calm Mind with a Pain Split and then a Heat Wave, since it's going to be doubles, and then you can just rely on the other Pokemon for damage. So that's going to be it on the Chandelure. It does start running out of options for like extra moves and stuff. Bring in Heal Pulse, find other ways of supporting it. Maybe that's when you just do the Tailwind, you know. Instead of going the special attack investment, you go like high hit points, whatever speed range you want to go into, then a little bit on that defense, and then, you know, you set up the Tailwind. Xatu sets up Tailwind. So you can even go first turn Tailwind with a Focus Sash on Xatu, and then Chandelure has a Citrus Berry, and then Xatu can Simple Beam on the next turn as you're getting that last little round of Minimize, and then your Calm Minds count for double. Remember, that's the other thing about Simple. It's going to make your ability simple, so it doesn't work for just that turn. Then you're also getting ×2 on the Calm Minds, which I actually kind of forgot, so it gets even scarier than you would imagine to put Simple on a Pokemon that's setting up, and that could work out really well on Chandelure. That's fast. If they don't have an immediate way of just obliterating you, maybe even Air Balloon. Put on the Air Balloon for the Chandelure. Now, it will give away your item, but it means they're going to have to do something about that before they get to Earthquake you, and that could just buy you a little bit of time. So if you guys enjoyed the video, that's how you use Chandelure. I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching. What a crazy Pokemon.